Hi there, I'm Scotty. I'm a practicing witch and a professional tarot nerd, and I'm glad you're here. Our vocabulary word today is chocolate, because of course it is. Our word chocolate has a confusing etymology with some disagreement among linguists as to its ultimate origin. What can be said for the stuff we call chocolate today is that it comes from a tree native to Central America, the cacao tree, Theobroma cacao. Now, check out these cacao flowers. Aren't they just darling? And their little five-pointed stars. How magical is that? The successive cultures of the Olmecs, the Maya, and the Aztecs all used cacao beans to produce drinks and used these in some of their ceremonies and rites for regular consumption and for currency. Chocolate and Valentine's Day. Since time immemorial, these two things have gone together. Well, not really. They've really only been associated since time memorial, like 1861. This is when Richard Cadbury, yes, that Cadbury, the weird chocolate cream egg guy, this is when Cadbury began packaging chocolate in heart-shaped boxes for Valentine's Day. When I was a kid, I really enjoyed the risk involved with getting a piece of chocolate from one of those sampler boxes. It was such a gamble. Would it be a piece with a nice pleasant filling or one of those hellish fruit paste-filled things? As a metaphor, those boxes of chocolate can apply to life and to the tarot as well. The cards are like a box of chocolate. You never know what you're going to get. So, since we're coming up on Valentine's Day, our card today is naturally the Lovers. Because the Lovers is all about romance, right? Well, it can be, but not always in the stars in the eyes, heart all twitter-pated, toes curled up kind of way. But it is often about connections and relationships, just not necessarily romancy relationships. To get this party started, let's take a look at an early Lovers card from Marseilles style deck. Early versions of this card were about choice and had three human figures and a chubby little cherub seemingly bent on homicide. To understand this card, we need to remember that marriage hasn't always been about love. In the past, and I'm sure sometimes today as well, marriage was an economic and political alliance, at least among the ruling classes. We're talking about medieval and Renaissance times here. In this card, we see a feller having to choose between his heart and his obligation, between the homely older-looking lady and the comely younger lady. See his feet there? They're pointed in different directions. And the lady on his left seems to be trying to get his attention with her hand on his shoulder, while the lady on the right is gesturing at his heart, the seat of all joy and sadness. Now, I'm not saying that in the past people didn't want love, just that in some cases, folks looked at marriage differently than we do today. If they hadn't been interested in love, there wouldn't be so many tragedies in literature. And I'm looking at you, Mr. Shakespeare. Keep in mind that we're looking at one of the major arcana here, and many interpretations of the tarot see the majors as dealing with the big things of life, and in some cases, more spiritual concerns. And speaking of spiritual concerns, what's that homicidal little angel got in mind? Is he seeking to kill the desire for love or to inspire it? Writing in Holistic Tarot, Benabel Wynn says of the Lovers, many contemporary tarot practitioners assign a romantic indication to the Lovers card. However, in every traditional interpretation of the Lovers, the card is about a moral choice, about choosing the right path. The philosophical component of the card centers around choice. There is a duality or a decision to be made, and it is a choice between vice and virtue, an ethical quandary. Looking at the card in this way, we can see the two ladies symbolizing desire and obligation. And this can put an uncommon spin on the card from typical modern views. In the Hermetic Kabbalah, the lovers falls on the tree of life between Bina, the third Sephirah, and Tiferet, the sixth Sephirah. It's associated with the Hebrew letter Zayin. And here's a weird thing. That letter has the meaning of sword. Since I'm a dummy when it comes to the Kabbalah, this whole lover's sword thing is confusing. It's not really the first thing that comes to mind for me, except maybe all those literary tragedies. Realizing that the tarot isn't the only set of correspondences associated with the paths on the tree, I says to myself, Self, maybe you should look at other correspondences. One of those correspondences is with the Archangel Raphael, whose name means God has healed. You see, the L part of angel names means God. Well, specifically it means L, but that whole thing is a can of worms best left unopened at the moment. But there's the healed part there, and in some traditions, Raphael is considered to be the divine physician. Okay, that makes a bit more sense. Love, healing. But there's another bit. Some traditions consider Raphael to be the angel posted at the gates of Eden with a flaming sword. And there's that sword again. So I says to myself, Self, what you gonna do now? Well, let's take a look at the Sephirot, the path connect. The third Sephirah, Bina, understanding, is connected with the sixth Sephirah, Tiferet, beauty. Oh, now this looks promising. Understanding in this sense is the intellectual organization of understanding. Bina, this organizing influence, rests at the top of the pillar of severity, which isn't as, well, it really isn't as severe as it sounds. Just think of organizing and ordering. And Bina is where the energy stuff of the universe hangs out before it becomes stuff. Tiferet, on the other hand, is called beauty and is right there in the middle of the tree on the middle pillar, the pillar of equilibrium. Being there in the middle of the tree, Tiferet has a kind of clarity of consciousness, not just thought, not just emotion, but of awareness. Ever had a moment of clarity, a moment where things just seemed to make sense, ever so briefly? And then the alarm goes off, or somebody honks, and because you're just sitting there at the green light, and poof, it's all gone, except for that feeling it leaves behind. That's Tiferet, the feeling left behind. So the lovers falls on the path between understanding and beauty, between recognition and awe, between consciousness and realization. And it's a place in which healing can occur. Before I start writing bad poetry, let's take a look at some astrological associations. The lovers is associated with Gemini, a mutable air sign ruled by Mercury. Let's start with the air bit. Air is traditionally associated with the mind, information, and communication. And being a mutable sign, Gemini is flexible and adaptable. And good old Mercury was the Roman god of messengers and communication, and merchants and thieves, and, well, when syncretized with the Greek Hermes, lots and lots of stuff. A busy guy, Mercury. Good thing he's light on his feet. Oh, and he's got this cool stick, too. It's called the caduceus. You might think it's a healing thingy, but that's the rod of Asclepius. The caduceus became stylized to represent the planet Mercury, fittingly so. Well, what's that got to do with the lovers? What's air got to do with love? Isn't that more of a water emotion thing? Think about relationships. There's a kind of reciprocity there, for good or ill, a kind of communication, which isn't just with words. As a sign of duality, Gemini is twins after all. There's a potential for that back and forth. The adaptable nature of Gemini suggests flexibility in that reciprocity. Thinking back to the part where I talked about choice as a part of the lovers, well, choice is a thinky kind of thing, right? And that cool stick with the two snakes and some wings on there. Snakes have been symbols for knowledge and wisdom all over for a long time. And the wings? Well, flights of fancy can help us see and understand things from a different perspective. The Lovers is number 6 of the major arcana. And the reason for this is simple, really. It's because it's the 6th card, at least in the way that the majors are applied to the Tree of Life. But can we get more out of the number 6 here than just this? Well, let's try and see what happens. The way that I see the numbers in the tarot, the number 6 represents a stability and equilibrium. And we can kind of see that here in the card from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. Numerologically, are there other majors associated with 6? Well, if we reduce the double-digit majors, we'll find that card 15 reduces to 6. Oh, well, isn't that special? Remember, stability and equilibrium isn't always a good thing. And we'll come back more to this guy in a little bit. Here in the 6s from the major arcana, we might also see a kind of stability and equilibrium. Here we have our friends from the Rider-Waite-Smith deck whom we met earlier. The homicidal little maniac we saw in the Marseilles deck has been replaced by an apparently more polite angel. Check out his wild hair. As Raphael, the divine healer, we can see their role as one of reconciler, of bringing our two naked friends together. And behind old Raphael, there shines the sun, kind of enlightening the whole scene right up. Yes, I said enlightening, like that place between recognition and awe. But let's not forget that whole thing with the sword in Zion. The word cleave is interesting. I mean, it can mean to divide, and when paired with two, it can mean to hold on to. And notice everyone's postures. The hands are wide, open, welcoming. And our friends don't have any clothes on. Nudity in the tarot is frequently symbolic of vulnerability and transparency. And our friends here have nothing to hide from one another. Now, behind the dude there is a tree, which Waite says in the pictorial key to the tarot is the tree of life. It's got those 12 flamey things there, which Waite described as fruits, but I don't think I'd want to eat a fruit that was on fire. Unless maybe it's in one of those fancy burning desserts. Paul Foster Case in the Tarot, Key to the Wisdom of the Ages, says that these flamey leaf fruit thingies represent the 12 signs of the zodiac. Now, as such, the fire fruit tree could represent a solar year, or maybe by referencing the zodiac, it's made up of stars in the sky. It's a representation of the up there stellar world. The stellar world, the out there in some traditions, is regarded as the source of divine energy, whatever that means. The lady standing in front of the growing tree it's got 4 little orange fruits there. Waite says that this is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. I was taught in Sunday school that the fruit Adam and Eve ate was an apple. But maybe it was an orange instead, or even a quince. Anyway, maybe these 4 fruits represent the elements: fire, water, air, and earth, considered in some traditions and philosophies to be the energetic building blocks of the physical universe. And let's not ignore our little snaky friend there all coiled up around that tree. Even though snakes creep me out, this little guy just looks like a harmless grass snake trying to catch him some rays in a nice sunny spot. And coiled around the tree like that, it kind of reminds me of some metaphysical interpretations of Kundalini energy, a kind of vital spiritual force in humans, which through spiritual growth uncoils and flows upward within the seeker. This uncoiling results in a spiritual transformation, and transformation is a common symbolic interpretation of snakies. But back to our fruit trees. If we see the fire fruit as out there, part of the universe, and the oranges as the right here part of the universe, then these two trees together comprise the whole of everything, right? So our friends here, all starkers and welcoming, represent a kind of balance which brings into existence, well, everything. And check out which way they're looking. Dude is looking at the lady, and lady is looking at the angel. And the angel, well, they seem to be meditating or maybe taking a nap. One way of looking at these three is not as separate individuals, but as three aspects of a single individual. One way this has been described is that the angel represents our own divine selves, the part that connects us to the universe. The lady is our unconscious self, the part that feels and dreams and plays with crayons. The dude is our conscious self, the part that has conversations about metaphysics, thinks about quinces, and balances our checkbooks. The conscious self doesn't communicate directly with the divine self. They just don't speak the same language. So it has to go through the unconscious self. So in a balanced self, we get a flow from the divine to the unconscious to the conscious. And if we're out of balance, well, then we get this. And if you look at these two cards side to side, what might we notice? Well, they're flip sides of the same card, one in balance and the other not so much. Looking at it this way, the marriage, the relationship in the lovers isn't outside us, it's within. Looking at this card from the Pulp Tarot by Todd Alcott, the first thing that comes to my mind is busted. I mean, here comes that angel, but alas, it's too late. Our friends have already discovered the recipe for apple pie. This imagery is all from the biblical story of the Garden of Eden, including the leafy clothing. I really hope they didn't make that out of poison oak. Talk about uncomfortable, but nope, those are fig leaves. And it still seems a mite itchy. The image is after the forbidden fruit has first been eaten. So let's not play the blame game. Everybody made their choices. That fruit was from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, when I was growing up in the Baptist church, that whole God said don't eat from the tree of knowledge thing was confusing. I loved learning things, and I still do. And I just couldn't figure out why God would not want us to know stuff, especially the difference between good and evil, since the whole thing was that we were supposed to be good. But let's look at it in a more esoteric way. Good and evil could easily be replaced with other duality implying words. Light and dark, masculine and feminine, up and down, Star Wars and Star Trek, chocolate and peanut butter. And in recognizing a duality, we can also recognize a third thing, unity. So our friends ate the forbidden apples or oranges or quinces or whatever, and now they realize things. They know things. And then all of a sudden they were like, oh my God, I'm naked. I got to get me some fashionable leaf clothes. You know, I never really understood what knowing stuff and wearing clothes had to do with one another. Anyway, let's key on the word knowledge here. When we know stuff, sometimes we end up with understanding. And understanding is the beginning of the path to beauty, the path from Binah to Tiferet. The Forest Lovers from the Wildwood Tarot by Mark Ryan, John Matthews, and Will Worthington gives us a variation on the themes we've seen in the Marseilles and Rider-Waite-Smith decks. Here there's a definite marriage theme, as we can see in the handfasting of the couple. But right away we can see a couple of differences. One being is that there's no looming angel or homicidal cherub, just the happy couple, hands over their hearts. Another difference in this card, the gentleman is on the left and the lady is on the right. This contrasts with the Rider-Waite-Smith card, which shows us the lady on the left and the gentleman on the right. The tree in this case is a birch, which, amongst other things, carries the symbolic meanings of joy, happiness, and new beginning. All the stuff a young couple wants from a marriage, right? Well, maybe a happy young couple has other desires too. In the foreground, we see some arum lilies, also known as lords and ladies or cuckoo pint. My granny called these Jack in the pulpit. The author says that these flowers symbolize union of the male and female, and these flowers do have traditional and symbolic meaning of union and rebirth. That union bit is suggested because the flowers look like, well, you can figure it out. If you can't, ask your mom or dad, or maybe the birds and the bees. These flowers usually appear in late April or early May, just in time for Beyerl, also called May Day, which is a holiday on the wheel of the year which celebrates the coming of summer and of life bursting forth. A fun tradition at this time of the year is dancing the maypole. The authors write in the guidebook, between them stands a maypole, generated by their exchange of energy and symbolized here by a living birch tree. Spiraling around this are green garlands reaching up towards the sky and representing the ascending earth energies, which meet with the descending energies of the sky. The forest lovers create a spark of life that generates a third force or energy. But this coiling green ribbon reminded me of the green snake coiled round the tree in the Rider-Waite-Smith card. And then I noticed this. It looks kind of snaky to me. And with the green ribbon, the idea of the expression of Kundalini energy can lend some meaning here as well. While the Rider-Waite-Smith card seems to be more mystical and spiritual in intention, this card isn't without its own mystical nature. Here we see the mysteries of both life and spirit represented in the very down-to-earth, dare I say mundane, ceremony of marriage. Here in the Urban Tarot by Robin Scott, we have a beautiful card for the lovers. The author tells us in the guidebook that the inspiration for this card was from wedding photos of his own wedding. He says that the ceremony was small and was held in their apartment, and they didn't have an official photographer, just their friends taking pictures. He goes on to say, as such, this piece is what we usually think of as our official wedding image, and it's the only piece of my art we have hanging in our bedroom. That really is such a lovely sentiment, I think. When compared with other cards in this deck, this card might seem to be a bit sparse in symbolic imagery. At first glance, there just doesn't seem to be much going on, but there really is more happening here than we might think. It's just hidden amongst what we might think of as common things at a wedding. There's a kiss, of course, that thing that happens at the end of a lot of wedding ceremonies, the thing that represents the joining of two lives together into one, that coming together of people. The two candles intertwine to end in a single flame, representing the union of two lives. The candle holders are interesting. They're a nod to Aleister Crowley and Lady Frida Harris's original art in the Toth deck. The eagle and the lion are symbols from alchemy, representing different stages and processes in the great work. Crowley comments that, in this case, they are also symbols of duality, male and female, fire and water, air and earth, light and dark. So here these intertwining candles and their holders represent the kind of unity of opposites, duality made single. And that duality is further indicated by the white dress and the black tuxedo. Our scene is set on a fire escape, which kind of hints to me of the balcony scene in a certain tragic love tale. Well, maybe there's more to it than that. Would hope so. On the fire escape, they're in a liminal space between earth and sky. Liminal spaces are thresholds where we cross over and where transformations occur. And isn't transformation what partnerships are really about? Each card in the tarot has its traditional interpretation, but the Lovers seems to be typecast and pigeonholed into modern concepts of romance and idealized relationships. While it can certainly carry this interpretation, just like every other card of the deck, the Lovers exists on a spectrum of meaning. From the most tender, you may kiss the bride moment, to the heights and depths of the greatest mystery, our own nature and our own relationship with the universe itself, our own duality and unity, the choices we make and why we make them, our transformation and growth, understanding and beauty. Our card today was brought to you by the letter chocolate. Oh, those look lovely. I really shouldn't eat these. Thank you for spending some of your time with me today. If you've enjoyed that time, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. I'm Scotty. Safe journeys.